Hello, everyone, welcome to Economics Window. Today we will learn about the concept of poverty. What is poverty? Who are poor? How are they identified? Poverty is a state or condition in which a person or community lacks the financial resources and essentials to meet their basic needs for sustainable living. This includes things like food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, and education. Poverty can be caused by a number of factors, including lack of access to education and job opportunities, lack of healthcare and proper nutrition, economic downturns and financial crises, conflict, and natural disasters. Poverty is often measured in terms of income, but it can also encompass other factors such as lack of access to basic services, lack of political power, and social exclusion. In general, poverty refers to the absence of resources to meet basic needs and the inability to participate fully in the social, economic, and political life of a community. Poverty can take many forms and can be experienced on a personal, national, and global level. It is a complex issue that is influenced by a range of factors, including but not limited to income levels, employment opportunities, access to education and healthcare, etc. It is a global issue, affecting millions of people in both developed and developing countries. Addressing poverty requires a multifaceted approach that addresses the underlying causes and provides support to those who are most in need. There are two different ways of measuring poverty: absolute poverty and relative poverty. One by one, let's learn about both. First, we have absolute poverty. Absolute poverty refers to a lack of resources necessary to meet basic needs such as food, clothing, and shelter. Absolute poverty is usually measured by a poverty line, which is a set income level below which a person is considered to be in absolute poverty. The poverty line is typically set based on the cost of a basic basket of goods and services in a given country or region. Absolute poverty refers to a set standard that measures the minimum resources necessary for a person or a family to meet their basic needs for survival. This standard is typically expressed in terms of a monetary value and adjusted for inflation over time. Absolute poverty thresholds vary depending on the country, but typically include food, shelter, clothing, and other basic necessities. The World Bank defines absolute poverty as living on less than $1.90 per day. Let's now learn about relative poverty. Relative poverty, on the other hand, is a measure of poverty in relation to the average standard of living in a society. In other words, relative poverty is defined as a situation in which an individual's income is significantly lower than the average income in their society, making it difficult for them to participate in the activities and consumption patterns considered normal for their society. Relative poverty, on the other hand, is defined in relation to the overall standard of living in a given society. It is based on the idea that poverty should be measured in comparison to the general standard of living in a society, rather than in absolute terms. In other words, relative poverty is defined as a lack of resources in relation to the average standard of living in a given community. For example, a person might be considered to be in relative poverty if they live in a wealthy country but still cannot afford to participate in many of the activities that are normal for the majority of people in that society. In conclusion, the main difference between absolute and relative poverty is that absolute poverty is based on a set standard, while relative poverty is based on a comparison to the overall standard of living in a given society. Or we can say absolute poverty measures poverty in terms of the lack of basic needs, while relative poverty measures poverty in terms of an individual's position in society in comparison to others. Thank you for watching Economics Window.